Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming. Any agenda adjustments? All right. Consideration of the minutes. A motion to approve the minutes of the May 25th, 2022 and the June 1st, 2022 Board of Directors meeting.
So moved. Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Corrections? Comments?
Just a typo. Yeah.
All right.
Second page.
On which one? Well, the one was on one
May
page,
25th.
I guess.
May 25th. May 25th. Second page. ONN on June 1st. Third paragraph. Fourth
Oh,
paragraph.
okay. Got it.
Yep.
Double in.
Yep.
Right down there.
Yep.
Any others? Seeing that? Oh, and I'll mention Joe is out. He's not feeling well, so he has an excused illness tonight, absence. So without any other discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Public comments. This is a time when those people in the public have an opportunity to speak on issues that affect them and pertain to the schools. We ask that you be considerate when you make your comments. And for those in the audience, if you'll please come to the mic. And those online, if you can raise your hand, or you can send a chat. The superintendent or assistant superintendent will see the chat and then can go and read it. You raise your hand, the assistant superintendent can call on you. When you are recognized, please give us your name and your town of residence. Is there anybody that would like to make any comments? Anyone want to make any comments? No.
Board members allowed?
You get yours under board comments.
Okay.
All right. Seeing none and none online, then we'll move on. Petitions and communications. I would just mention under communications that I just signed tonight on behalf of the board the engagement letter with the auditors. We knew, I mean, it was something that's kind of approving the budget. We have to do it. I met with them along with Jessica on yesterday, was it? Yes. Yesterday morning. Had a good conversation. I do have, this isn't the principal, but it's the head auditor. If they ask if I was aware of anybody on the board having concerns about our financials or procedures or processes or anything like that, and I told them that I had not heard of any. However, if you have any, I have his number. If you will let me know, don't go through Jessica. We'd like to keep it separate from the administration. If you can let me know, and if nothing else, I'll get you the number if you want to talk to him directly. All right? But I would like to know what it is because I'm the one that's going to have to deal with them when we have our meetings. All right? So anybody has any concerns about the procedures, the accounting, the finance, anything like that, please let me know and we'll get you in contact with the auditors. Okay, reports. Assistant Superintendent report.
Yeah, I just want to, I have a lengthy one tonight, but I just want to talk about the resignation. We didn't do exit surveys. Two of the teachers are going to their hometowns, and then one is leaving education, so that's why. And want to celebrate Kathy Kaufman. She has 27 years in RSU, and was retiring, so a lot of service to RSU, so we wish her well there. So I'm going to do my three hats, so let me start with the superintendent hat. So last week we sent out a notification of a report of a potential threat at Oakville Middle School. After working with Savannah PD, it was determined to be false. There was absolutely no threat or any danger to students or staff in our community. In fact, it was just a regular YouTube video that was going around that has nothing to do with school related events. I think it, obviously brings up a lot of questions and concerns. I had mentioned that we started a process So actually a week prior to the Texas shooting, we had worked with Deer Go Safety. They're an organization out in Auburn. They are retired law enforcement. They focus on school safety and safety plans. John and I have been working regularly. In fact, I had conversations with them just today. They do have ALICE certified trainers, as Scott had mentioned, but they're doing a two-prong assessment of our plan. So they're looking at our emergency response plan, and they're also going to look at the safety assessments of our buildings. So we will having tours of all our buildings to kind of see where our strengths and weaknesses are, and then we'll be looking at our emergency plan. You need to know, I know I sent the plan to Vicki, and I only sent you one in school.
Oh, yeah.
But our safety emergency plan has much more to do than just active shooting. So in the past week, we have used hold, where a student might be dysregulated or there might be an injury, and we ask students and staff to stay in their classrooms. Sebatis PD put in, they were helping a community member near Sebatis Primary, so they asked us to do a lockout, which means business as usual in the building, but we weren't going off for recess until it was all clear, till they could help the community member. So we've used multiple things that are not just active shooters, so we are certainly looking at a full assessment to make sure where our strengths and weaknesses are. If you remember, we do plans at the building level, we do things at the district level, from reunification to we've done district-wide lockdowns with law enforcement, and we just did one in March, and that went really well. So we're still doing that assessment. We're going to be doing an extensive process and plan this summer, and we'll have a plan of what the professional development would look like. It would look very different at Oak Hill Middle School than it does at Lee Kosher. So we're going to kind of look at what that will be, and then we'll share with you all what the plan is.
Great, thank you.
I also shared with you that we had a bus accident on Monday. There was no injuries, minor scratches on the bumper. The light is okay there. I will say, kudos to Sebatis PD. They cleared the scene within 30 minutes and were able to continue on both bus lanes. So that was great. On building pieces, we have a meeting with Siemens on Monday. They're going to do a tour of Lee Kosher and Sebatis Primary. They have agreed to do a report of all the things that we need to do in the next 5 years for those two buildings, so we can get updated list of what we need to do, as well as updated costs. So I know we've been doing our community forums and using 2019 wish list, performance reports, and those numbers will have an updated one. We're doing it on Monday, we'll have the report by Friday, we'll have everything ready to roll out on June 22nd at the public meeting. Lots of events happening in our buildings that have kind of done pre-COVID. We had celebrations and learning at SPS. Must have been 200-300 people there. Maybe Tozier was standing room only, about 300 people there for the literacy night. And obviously graduation, the team did a great job kind of getting back and celebrating graduates at the Augustus Civic Center on Monday. To my food service hat, our DOE audit is complete. We only had a few minor changes, and we were actually, some system changes. We changed to a new system this year. There were system changes that they locked us out and we couldn't update them. We fixed them before we actually had our meeting, so we actually have no action plan. So it's considered done and good to go. So kudos to the entire team who put together all the documents, and service managers and Vicki Hines who helped with all that hard work. And lastly, my curriculum hat. So tonight I'm not going to share the thunder because the principals will be sharing their STAR data reports with you, so we'll do that. Our assessments are official after today. Hopefully we have all our assessments complete. We may have one or two starters left, but for our 21-22. We have some changes for the upcoming year in terms of what assessments it will look like. So I won't steal that thunder because Jen is going to share that during CAI later today. And summer school update. So we have 100 students that are currently signed up for session 1, which starts June 21st and goes to June 30th. Pre-K4 is going to have their session at Carrie Brooker. 5 through 12 is going to have it at high school. So we originally thought the middle school was going to be at the middle school. Our numbers are a little bit smaller. So we decided to move 5 through 12 to high school, which we have admin and nurses and then food there. So we also piloted our TransFinder, which is our new bus routes We're gonna be able to pilot it 3 times during our 3 sessions, so that it should be smooth for the fall run. And that concludes my report tonight.
What's the second session of summer school look like? You said the first session begins.
Yeah, it's July 11th through the 22nd, whatever that Thursday is, and then it's August 1st through the 11th.
And number of students we have in those sessions?
So high school ends up being kind of a revolving. If they get done in first session, they kind of stop, but then they continue to go. So we're averaging about 100 for the first 2 sessions. We do have smaller numbers. We're only about 60 for the third session. But sometimes when we get going, then parents will call and ask to be added. So it's kind of a revolving door. We will welcome all.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. I'd also like to congratulate Mrs. Kaufman. She was a Wales student, a Wales teacher when I got on the board, and she's done an exceptional job in our district for all these years. Okay, move on. Don't have a financial report tonight. Administrators' reports. I see a lot of nuns for principal special eds, but are they doing it under?
Last time, and they're going to be doing the data reports and sending them.
Oh, okay, they'll do it there. All right. Are there any other reports? And no old business? I move into new business. 7.1, I'd entertain a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 405-6A contract negotiations.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. So at this time, we'll go in executive session. It shouldn't be very long. We will be conducting business, one form or another, when we come back.
Recording stopped.
So please hang around, and we will bring you back in when we're ready for you.
6:42 out, 6:40 in, I should say.
Christie,
Recording in
you can make the
progress.
motion.
Sure. Do you want me to read it? Are you reading it, and then I'll?
Everybody back up. All online connectivity done.
Yep.
7.2, calling Christie for a motion.
Yep, I make a motion to elect Catherine Grondin as Superintendent of Regional School Unit 4 as recommended by the Board of Directors.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? If you'd like to give us a little rundown.
Sure. Katie is an experienced educator who brings with her so much experience, starting from the classroom and then as an administrator in a school building, then as assistant superintendent in Auburn, and then superintendent in Auburn for many years. And then previously, she was at the Augusta School Department as assistant superintendent. She brings with her a wealth of knowledge around educational transformation, school building projects, and we are very lucky to have you. So welcome, Katie.
Welcome. Welcome.
All right, any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you and welcome. And I have contracts for you now to sign. All right.
Got a little welcome gift.
Woohoo!
Well, we had a great first meeting.
I see they have Halloween orange paint waiting to go in the office.
Yellow. It's yellow.
It looked like it was orange to me.
Oh, man.
Paint in your office.
Just joking. All right. 7.3, Principals Data Reports.
We'll keep it a little neat tonight and go by grade level.
What am I doing? I like the butterflies.
Did I do that or did you do that? It was me. Oh, there, it worked. Okay. All right. I am not going to spend a ton of time chatting about pre-K data today because we covered this in the winter. I will kind of refresh my thoughts on why the data looks like it does. If we compared years past with the same two teachers that are showing up for this, responsible for some of this data, you would see a whole different picture. Last year, with the hybrid model that we used for COVID, we went to 2 full days instead of 4 half days, which means nap time, 2 meals instead of 1, lots more potty breaks, many things that aren't in half of a day, and also means 1 round of reading instruction and math instruction, not the 4 that we would get in a whole week on each of those half days. So that's we'll see next year, but that is my kind of reasoning behind what's going on here. It's not what we want to see. The teachers are amazing. It does not reflect them at all. I think this is a scheduling issue, and we'll see next year. Hopefully it'll go back to what it looked like a couple of years ago. That's, my turn to click. So kindergarten. We just have the one screen. One of the things about STAR there are things about it that I love. One that I do not love is the early literacy test has reading and math combined. So there's no breaking it apart to show you which part of that percentage is math and reading. Kathy, I think, told me there were 3 math questions out of the total number of them. So it's hard to really look at that information. We kind of assume that this is reading when we look at it for the most part. 18% more of the class is at benchmark now than in the fall, which is awesome. Only 8% are at urgent intervention. we have implemented really great reading to incorporate phonics in the curriculum. That started in October, Kathy. So we didn't do that all year, but that was the majority of the year. It's new, so the learning curve is there, but the staff have worked very hard to really start using that, because we found, looking at data, that phonics was definitely missing and needed to be added. There's been a large focus on reading professional development this year. We've done book studies, coaching cycles, training for our ed techs to support RTI with our kindergarten students. In the past, they were more like a teacher's aide sometimes, or more for behavior support, and we've really tried to work toward more instructional time for them. So they have worked hard this year with Becky D'Alessandro, our coach, and really are doing a great job looking at the data, offering some of the assessments, doing progress monitoring, and running those interventions with the kids. The hope is next year to start doing the same thing with those same texts to support math. So that is part of our goal for next year. The data from that reading support with those texts in kindergarten has been phenomenal, so we're really hoping that we see the same thing with math. And then a quick end for Libby Tozier. We just met this morning. I met with teachers a couple weeks ago and talked about what they wanted to work on for goals next year after looking at not only the STAR data, but the other assessment data that we have. And today I met with coaches to kind of fine-tune that discussion from the staff, and we came up with some goals. Our math goal for our ESSA report will be 80% of students will meet their growth goal on our assessment using fall to spring data. Writing, 80% of students will increase their scaled score on the writing rubric that we use by at least 1 point, as measured by the rubric from winter to spring. And we'll have an attendance goal as well for 10% reduction in chronic absenteeism for the next school year. I don't know if you have questions. I'll pass it to Ben and then come back.
Hey there, so I'm going to go over Splash Primary School data. So looking at our first grade early literacy for reading and math combined, we're looking at 43% of the kids that are at or above expectation. We also have 6% of the kids who are probably a question away from getting up to where they need to be. So looking at first grade reading data specifically, again, the early literacy is for kids who have yet to meet close to grade level with their phonics Bonells or their FMP scores. So we do two assessments. So this is assessment of the students that we have who are closer to grade level. So we're looking at 57% of the kids that are either meeting or exceeding the average, which is fantastic, with 15% of the kids being really close, 1 or 2 questions away. For reading, looking at first grade math, we have 58% of the kids who are proficient or exceeding, with 25% of the kids getting really close, a question or 2 away from becoming proficient, which is very exciting. Looking at the second grade reading data, we have 34% of the kids who have made growth, with 9% of the kids getting really close within a question or 2. So, you know, we've made, if you look at the first testing data in the fall, we've made tremendous growth, not quite what we want to see. But again, this test is nationally normed, so we're looking at data compared to the national norm. We're looking at, you know, by the end of the year, the questions are more complicated. The score expectation has increased to 925. The kids are doing pretty well. We only have 12% of the kids there in the red.
Also, we're nationally normed. It's normed at 40%, and RSU4 uses 15%. So we're actually 10% higher than we have a higher expectation.
We have great
in RSU4
expectations.
compared to the
Yeah.
national norm. So just understand that we kind of
Yep.
have set that, and we did not change it all the way through since we started.
All these 9 years, we've been doing the same.
Well, and also if you look at these numbers, understanding the fact that this is a grade that literally hasn't been in school for 2 years.
None of the
So
grades
this
you've
is
seen, so
their-
yeah, none of them.
This is their first
Yep.
year of really being in school, so that's pretty significant as well.
And isn't there a pretty big jump developmentally about what's expected
Yes.
of first grade
Huge.
STAR
Mhm.
compared
Yes.
to second grade
Well, if you look
STAR?
at the fact that there's an early
Yeah.
literacy test, which again is not given to
Yeah.
kids who, you know,
Right.
it's given to kids who are yet to even approach grade level.
Right.
So it's more of a
Yeah.
kindergarten assessment than anything else. So then looking at second grade math, you know, 37% are meeting or exceeding, with 16% being a couple questions away. So we've had growth this year, just not what we looked for. But again,
Right.
as you mentioned,
Right,
you know, it's been a while since they've been in school. So
And it's just a snapshot of that day.
right.
it is one picture. Yeah, there's one picture. Okay. Ready to come back? I'll push the button for you. It's fun pushing the button. I like push buttons.
All right, so Carrie Ricker, third grade reading, 47% are at or above benchmark, which is a 19% increase from the fall. Good thing I didn't share this with you. There's a couple typos. 17% are at urgent intervention, which is a 5% decrease from fall. So it's improvement, even though not quite where we'd like to see it. We did begin implementing really great reading in October at this grade level as well. And I'll share a little bit about our goals at the end of this part. Third grade math, 48% are at or above benchmark, 4% increase from the fall. 21% are at urgent intervention, which is only down 1% from the fall. A strong focus on kind of why we come up with the answer this year. We did a big math is figure outable, where students really had to talk about every answer that they got, not just write down an answer from memorization. So that's been a big focus this year. Fourth grade reading, 47% at or above benchmark, up 12% from the fall. 18% are at urgent intervention, but that's down 9% from fall. Again, we are also using really great reading at fourth grade. Fourth grade math, 44% at or above benchmark, 21% increase from the fall. 19% are at urgent intervention. And then we did this, and I didn't tell you how much lower that is, because as you can see, it went up a little bit at the end of the year. We, again, talking about how did they come up with an answer, not just kind of doing it out of memorization. So we didn't finish writing our goals for ESSA yet. I meet with the coaches this coming Friday, but we did have our staff meeting the other day. So we talked about coming up with a goal that will work with the action steps of pacing. Pacing has been part of every discussion we've had about curriculum for the past few weeks. At the end of the year, kind of looking at that ESSA report and really trying to talk about goals for moving forward. And it's not me saying it. I know Kathy likes to hear pacing. She talks about it with me a lot, but this is coming straight from the staff. Like, we really need to focus on pacing. We changed a lot of things last year during the hybrid model, and when we were doing remote instruction at the end of the year before, and kind of tried to go back to where we were before that, to whatever this normal is now. But it's not really working. So we've got a lot of work to do with that next year. That's come up in writing discussions, reading discussions, and math. And we talked a lot about math pacing at our meeting the other day. So our goal will be to increase student achievement on our assessments, but pacing will be a huge part of the work next year. Subtraction and fractions are areas of weakness for both third and fourth grade. A writing goal for there, also pacing again, hot topic. Writing workshop focus for third and fourth grade next year. Some book studies. Book studies have been a huge hit. We have lots of support staff come as well as teachers, so everybody's kind of talking the same language. Those are done after school most of the time. We do some during PLGs if we can make them fit with time. But they're coming of their own will. That's not paid time. That's volunteer time for our hourly staff to choose to come. They get a copy of the book and they read it on their own and come back and have great discussion. And we had huge groups at our book studies this year volunteering to come. And then we'll have an attendance goal again at Carrie Ricker to increase the chronic absenteeism by 10%. And last but not least, lots of wonderful discussion about how to use PLG time next year. We tried, I think I shared a couple meetings ago, we tried a 6-week cycle this year where the grade level teams looked at their data together, and they were not told what they needed to do for using that time for professional development and whatnot. They chose what to do, and we saw some great growth from that one cycle that we tried. So the hope is to incorporate that into the PLG time next year, and we'll have a little more time than usual with the switch to early release. So really kind of thinking about how to look at data more often. We don't find enough time with workshop days and whatnot for that. So to look at the data more often and do more of those cycles and kind of rotate between reading, math, and writing. So that is all I have. Questions?
Yes, Ray.
Jamie, do you think the pacing problem could be like a muscle memory thing? We just got to work back into it? Or are we spending more time going over stuff that we should have gone over? Or that we wouldn't normally go over?
That's a great question, Robbie. Little of both, maybe. I know that some teachers will say they never do the last unit, even before COVID. They'll never do the last unit. It doesn't fit in a year. It was designed to fit in a year, but then there are things that come up. There are field trips. There are behaviors that disrupt the day every now and then. Different things like that. The beginning of the year, we try to really focus on SOPs for a little bit, so that slows down the amount of instruction the first couple weeks of school. So lots of different things like that. But there's not really a locked-in.
Right.
And we're not meeting together, so we've got to have the grade level teams really meet together to make sure, kind of accountability wise, that everybody's in the same
But are you
spot.
finding the pacing problem affecting more kids now than we did in the past? I know you might not finish a unit at the end of the year, but a larger percentage of the kids were at the same unit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a wider gap. We don't ability group in the majority of our classes, so it's hard to meet the top students and the lowest ones. So I think when we look at that pacing, that differentiation part, that'll be part of the discussion for sure as well. And coaches are on that, and we'll support that work too. So I think it all kind of connects for sure. Yep.
Jamie, you might not know the answer right now, but I wonder, are you seeing the same kind of trends through the cohort for the last couple of years? So like if you were looking at fourth grade this year, were they in a similar place at the end of the year last year as third graders and as second graders?
They had typical regression over the summer. 80% of our students that attended summer school maintained from spring to fall. So they didn't gain, but they didn't regress, and so that was a big piece of it. I just think we started lower since our COVID, so we're still seeing the same amount of gains.
Okay.
But that beginning fall number is typically lower than what we were seeing at the beginning pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Our expectations too were, do what you need to do for the kids, start where the kids are at, and do everything you can from there. So I think we were being a little lax about pacing, and kind of some teachers were kind of doing an eclectic option of like changing some units to really kind of spend more time with fractions, because we knew that our data did that. Our last unit is a preview unit, so we kind of give permission. You don't have to do the preview unit. Make sure you get to your the content you're supposed to be exposed. But a lot of conversations are, if we don't get through the units, then we're actually creating other gaps, even though
Right.
you're trying to like really.
Well, that's what I mean. It backs up.
Yeah, it does.
So-
For
That's
sure.
the snowball effect, right? So great conversations. In our instructional handbook, we limited how much we had during that remote time, from the spring, and then we kind of prioritized our units during the hybrid model, and now we're kind of getting back to kind of really focus on the RTI. We're looking at modules, so like maybe starting with a subtraction unit so the kids are more successful and can go through those units. Diane did do the math. That was very successful for her. We're thinking about doing those similar things for those classes.
But with more customized learning, individual instruction, everybody's moving at their own pace.
Yeah.
So consequently, if one student's here and another student's here, somebody that's willing to move forward and go ahead should be able to do that.
Well, she says they're not doing groupings, so but based
Right.
upon potential.
We don't do whole class groupings. So with the workshop model that we use, there is a mini lesson, so everybody gets that same, overall instruction for the day. But then we do groupings within the
Right.
class.
Yeah.
So there would be 3 kiddos that were much closer together. But the overall classroom lesson, there's a wide range of abilities. The workshop model definitely helps support all of those
Right.
differences.
I think another piece too is that we were having the teachers not look. This is achievement data. In January, we did a big piece with our staff during the January workshop to not look at achievement data, but in the STAR reports, it was looking at how could you show growth data. So it might have been low achievement but high growth. So we were looking at those kids who are having low growth, and let's really focus on what are the skills that we need to teach them to get to high growth. So we were really switching our gears to the growth model, the growth concept, and that's why you'll see a lot of articles are about hitting those growth targets versus the achievement.
And I will say one of the most interesting things I saw during that January time was teachers just shocked, like jaw-dropping, when they saw that their top students were in the low growth. And kind of explaining that process. And they would, the growth is slower the higher they get with things. But it was an interesting conversation. I think they thought it was broken. So we had to talk about, we can't ever forget about any of them on here. We need to make sure that we're we're finding a way to differentiate even more in those groupings. So the top group 2 has to be moved further ahead than what they are. So, yep.
Okay. Anybody else? Oh, hold it. I have it. Diane?
One of the great things about the STAR is you can go back and look to see which students
Right.
need specific things, like
Yep.
where the holes are
Right.
missing, and then those students,
Right.
you can work on those skills with them.
Yep.
So that was one great piece about the STAR.
So I have a couple of comments. So you mentioned grouping, we don't do classrooms, we just, so when you have a classroom that has some students that are excelling and you have the overall instruction that you give to everybody for that day, isn't that something that they've already got mastered and so now they're just getting distracted because they've already done that because they've advanced?
In that mini lesson, sometimes it is repetitive for those kiddos who have already learned that. But then in the mini lessons they're mini. It's not a whole hour-long class or anything like that. But then when they're in those small group settings, they would get what meets the 3 students in that group's needs to keep moving forward, and that's with the teacher. So it's a 1-to-3 ratio for that part, which is great. So,
Right. So then my other one is you mentioned that this year they have to spend time explaining why they get an answer and not just the answer. I guess maybe I'm old school. I mean, we learned flashcards, and the reason 2 and 2 is 4 is because it's 4, right? I mean, even when I went to college just 25 years ago, I guess now, didn't have to explain my answers. I just needed to come up with an answer. We had other classes that taught us critical thinking and things like that, but the key with math is to come up with the answer, know how to do it, right? Which, if you don't know how to do it, you don't come up with the answer.
Yep. So one thing that we actually just had a meeting a couple days ago, Bob, so perfect timing with that question. When we were talking about the goal that we needed to come up with for the ESSA report, subtraction was discussed a lot for 3rd and 4th grade, and the fact that the kids know it, they show that they've mastered it. There's a great score entered in jump rope, and then when it comes back to it, because it's spiraling, a month, maybe 2 months later, they're struggling a lot with subtraction. So that's where we're seeing the memorization piece works in the moment. It looks like everybody's an expert at it, but then when they start doing it again after doing something new, if they move on to division or something, then they start to struggle with it. So that's
Even in a different context, so like
Yep.
word problems, or and
Yes.
where it conceptually builds, and we'll see that in the middle school. They understand it.
Right, I can understand in word problems, you gotta figure out how to go and extract the data that you need and how to go and use it, which is, economics professor I had said, that what we're trying to teach you is to know what information to go and put into the box and then how to read the data, the answer that comes out. The box does all the monkey work, right? And that's the tool that these students are gonna have, is they're gonna have that box.
that's
They
our
need
goal.
to know what data to extract, to stick in, and then how to read the results that come out the other end. And so, in some way I disagree, I agree that they memorize and then you come back later and they might forget. But if that's the case, then all the people that were my age wouldn't know how to add, right? Because we only got it that way. So.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So,
And that's part of it for sure, is that quick, learning how to add quickly and subtract.
once you learn it and you've got it, and because you're gonna do that all throughout your school history. Every time you take a math class, you're gonna use addition. I don't care if it's in algebra, trig, geometry, you're gonna use some of that. So it's always gonna get reinforced, over time. So maybe a week later you might forget, but all of us that went to college or even high school know how we cram for exams. Maybe we didn't know much afterwards. But, okay, thank you very much.
I have this fear, okay, that we all learn the way we learn. And these kids aren't learning that way. I remember hearing about kids using Siri to do their math problems.
Not in class.
Not in class. Not in class.
Thank you.
So let's advance that to engineers. My son is an engineer. He can do math problems on paper like you would not believe. I could not even begin to understand what he does. But he doesn't use that. This is what he uses today.
It doesn't make a mistake.
Never makes a mistake.
Yep.
It's always right. And you never have to worry about finding an answer because it's instant.
Which I think goes back to Jamie's point of
Right.
understanding the reasoning behind it.
Right.
So we all carry a computer in our pocket now. It's
Yep.
very different than when even I was in elementary school.
Yeah.
The kids need to have the foundation to understand the why.
Right.
How do you get to this answer? Okay, the answer is 42. How do we get to 42? Somebody might show you, but you need to know
There you
those
go.
things.
It's like the stage of reading, right? So I'm gonna be able to read the book, but can I then conceptually, talk about the book and then analytically talk about the book? So it's just part of those stages. So memorizing and all of that gets you that first level, but then it's like building. And so as we start seeing in that third and fourth grade, we're starting to get to conceptual and abstract.
Because to these students graduating today, this is a tool. To us, it's a convenience, but to everybody else graduating today, it's a tool,
And it's a norm.
and it's a norm.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Next.
All right, you can sit down, Ben. We don't have any more questions.
I'm going to talk as fast as I normally do at school. So here we go. Fifth grade reading, 30% are meeting or exceeding, 22% are a couple questions away. But fifth grade reading, you have to know, and Robbie, this is for you.
Yep.
59.4% have made a year's worth of growth,
Good.
regardless of where they are on here.
That's the question.
So my big thing has always been local data versus national data. So 59% of the kids have met our growth. This is with replacing the reading teacher a third of the way through the year. Original reading teacher went to work 45 minutes closer to her home, and the person we have gained since then has been a beautiful, beautiful addition to our team. Ms. Reynolds is fantastic. Fifth grade math. We're looking at 36% of our kids are at or exceeding the expectation, with 13% being a couple questions away. Math right now, 62% of our fifth graders have made a year's worth of growth as when the test was offered, which is fantastic. If I could break this down even further, I just want to point out that our STEM team at the middle school for reading, 76% of those kids have met the average, which is phenomenal. The data for STEM is really outweighs the data for the regular team, which is great. Going to sixth grade reading, this is phenomenal. So Matt Rudishan has been working with Karen Matthew on doing the workshop model in the class. 84% of the kids in his class this year have made a year's worth of growth, which is phenomenal. And that is with grouping kids by ability level, having academic peers work together, doing novel studies, independent novel studies on the group at a zone of proximal development, which is everything we've been dreaming about. Really has come to fruition. 84% of the kids have 84% of the kids have got a year's worth of growth. Looking at the STAR data compared nationally, we're looking at 40% of the kids have met or exceeded the standard. I'm just going to drop them on the floor because I don't care anymore. Okay. Sixth grade math. All right. Katie, I don't make excuses. I just do what I do. Okay. All right.
Just drop the mic.
32. Oh, I believe there's a drop mic coming. 32% of the kids have met or exceeded the standard. 19% are a question or two away. That's for sixth grade math. Again, 64% of the kids in that grade level have met a year's worth of growth. STEM for math, 75% of the kids have met a year's worth of growth, and that's for the STEM team. So STEM is really proving to be productive for us, at least at that grade level. Looking at the seventh grade, we have 20% meeting or exceeding, with 29% being a question or two off. Looking at the overall data, though, 62% of the kids in seventh grade have got a year's worth of growth out of reading. And Ms. Kaufman, we're really going to miss her. She's been a stable part of our community for a very long time. We're trying to, if you guys know any Wales teachers from back in the day, we're trying to gather people. We have a little get up going over in Green here when the year's over, but we're really going to miss her. So then we look at math. Seventh grade math, we have 20% meeting or exceeding, with 23% question or two away. And math right now for seventh grade, and this is the class, and I'll talk to you guys about this in a minute. I taught this class for 3 months this year. This is a class we've had 5 math teachers in. I've been the common denominator for that class. I'm just saying it to brag. 70% of the kids have met a year's worth of growth, which has been fantastic for us. And we're doing a workshop model in that class as well, where the kids are grouped by ability level, working at zone of proximal development. The essentials classes for seventh grade have also been really wondrous for us, even though we've gone through 5 teachers this year in that math class. So looking at eighth grade reading, right now we have 35% of the kids meeting or exceeding, 14% a question or two away. We have 58% of the kids in 8th grade right now for our reading class who are getting a year's worth of growth. A little different scenario in 8th grade. We don't quite have the workshop model developed yet, not quite working on zone of proximal development, but the kids this year have had a lot of fun. We had a big push this year about making sure the kids enjoy being back in school. Our 8th grade class, just to be clear, has earned 50% of the discipline at the middle school this year. So I mentioned that as well, that we've had some difficulties there, as you've heard about. Normally at this time of year, we have 90 this office referrals at the middle school. We've had 360 this year. So there's been just some difficulties there. 160 of those have been from the 8th grade. No excuses, just putting out the facts. So that's reading, math. We're looking at 30% meeting or exceeding the standard, 18% a question or two away. Math for 8th grade, 63% of the kids have got a year's worth of growth out of our math class. So there we go.
Questions?
I think Jamie answered them all.
No, I got one.
I'll start picking up my papers because
Yeah. So, and you talked about, and rightfully so, the good news that significant percentage of our students are making the year's worth of growth.
Yep.
So, for those who don't make the year's worth of growth, and we throw them into the next grade level, 8th grades particularly, they're going to go to high school.
Yep.
How do we expect them to succeed?
So we have at the middle school for I've been there, it'll be 10 years this July, but 9 years ago we did an investigation. Jeff Farland and I went to travel around. We visited the school I came from, which was Gardner. We developed an essentials program there. So our essentials program is a tier 2 intervention for academics. And what that allows us to do is it's a true tier 2 intervention where kids who don't do well on our data get to be put in a class with fewer other students and more adults in that room. So it's a co-taught class. We have an interventionist in there. Marion Holmes is our current interventionist, and she's been teaching math in this district for quite a few years. So she sits in there, and what happens is it allows us to work with the kids. The teacher can work with a group, Marion can work with a group, and there's 2 other groups we rotate around. So we provide supports. So these kids, if you want to know, the essentials class has an average of 62% growth amongst that class. So those kids are giving us some of the benefit of that data. Once kids get to be proficient, we move them out. We just change the rotation in the schedule so they can be put into a normal math class. Some of us can be put back in that class if they're showing deficiencies in their math. And what this allows us to do is to be very flexible. We have very flexible grouping at the middle school for our kids and have for many years, which I think is why normally we have fairly decent data at the middle school. I think this is the first time I've presented data to you guys that's been less than 65% growth for our kids. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, these kids haven't been in school for 2 years. I think the data last year was phenomenal. We had 8 kids in the class though, right? So every class was an essentials class last year, and the essentials model really works well. It's that smaller class size or the more adult help in that class. So we have found that to be very productive for us. These kids aren't going to be left for naught. I know Marco, we already met with Marco and Sam and the high school teachers about our kids coming up. I think Marco has an essentials program at the high school as well.
Yes.
So we're developing what I like to call true tier 2 interventions for these kids where, it's small group, it's more assistance, and we're finding a lot of progress with that. So they're not being left for naught. And I'll be honest, there's probably a kid or 2 at the middle school that may not be moving to high school because sometimes when the parent understands that the kid hasn't been there, and there's all kinds of reasons why, but we don't want to, obviously, don't talk about retention because it's a negative thing. It may hurt a child, their ego moving forward, and the data shows that retention is not productive when it comes to dropping out, but occasionally it works. Occasionally a child has missed 100 days of school, they haven't been at school for a year, the parent may think it's okay, and the child's young enough, it's individual plans.
Yeah, so again, old school.
Yep.
So we're still talking about large percentage of students who have demonstrated they haven't got the years worth of growth, which means probably they're, because of where they started at, they probably started lower than where they were supposed to be, so they've been falling behind for a while.
Years.
And being old school and having been one of those students who was held back in 6th grade, and then it took me 5.5 years to get through high school, it worked for me. And it only becomes negative when the community makes it negative. If it is promoted as an assistance to make sure that student can succeed, I think it is beneficial. It's more beneficial than sticking someone into an algebra class that doesn't know how to multiply.
Agreed.
All right.
Agreed.
So, and I fear that we do that. atmosphere, not only here, but I think throughout the educational system. There's so much concern and thought about not hurting someone's feelings or keeping behind, and parents don't want their student left behind because of the stigma that the parents carry around, that we let our students down for them to be successful learners throughout their life. So those are my concerns.
Yep.
When we talk about, 40% or greater of students not making the year's worth of growth.
So what I didn't break down is how close the other kids are, Robert. So there are obviously a percentage of kids that are
Right.
close. So we tested in May, so we're looking at 7 months of the school year. So the kids that we presented to you are kids who've made 7 months of growth, and 7 months we've owned them, right? So there are kids who made 6 months of growth and 5 months of growth that are really close to being there, just aren't there yet. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this is a snapshot. This is a one and done. That this test does not present a accumulation of educational growth for these kids. That other assessments like the Fauna Spinel, like the F&Ps for reading and math, I'm not going to lie to you, it's a hard one to get a good solid data point on a student's growth because it fluctuates day to day. Some days I'm on it. Some days I can pull out an algorithm from high school, and other days I can't add two numbers together. It just happens that way. But it is difficult. But yeah, no, I think I'm very happy with the plans that are moving on right now at the middle school. I think most normally have good growth. Great question, though, about what we do with those 40% of kids. And I think, Robert, every year there's 4 or 5 kids that we do retain at the middle school, and there's a reason for that. And it's been productive for us as well. But it is, you're not wrong. The educational system doesn't like to look at that, doesn't want to talk about it, but it is beneficial for some kids.
Got them in a cohort. They got to go with the cohort, or the data is bad.
Well, not always. There was a few years there that Mark and I worked together that we had a 0.5 program. So at the middle school, we have some kids, because of our GT capabilities, we have some kids that move up in math and some kids that stay behind in math. We have kids, I have a 5th grader right now that's in the 6th grade math class, and next year he'll be in the 7th grade math class. We have some 7th graders who probably could use another year in 6th grade math. We just didn't do that this year, but we've also had 8th graders in the past that have gone to a 9th grade math class or stayed back into. So we have these 0.5 programs that also been very flexible. Again, we try to be as flexibly grouped as possible. I think the goal is to get rid of grade levels some year, right, Robert? That's kind of been one of the dreams that we've had, but we come pretty close to that. So.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
I got a few here. I'm saving them for Marco.
What'd you say, Bob? You got a few left? You got a few left? That's good. Oh, what happened? No, that's fine. Used to it. I mean, I wouldn't think anything less, expect anything less from you, Bob. Come on now, right? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see all of you, and thank you for a few minutes of your time to share some numbers in regards to spring testing for Oak Hill High School. I was going to ask you, Kathy, to go ahead and adjust the slide there, but I'll do it myself. Thank you very much. So our numbers, what I'll do is I'll read for each of these slides. I'll read the numbers for each category: above benchmark, at benchmark, on watch, intervention, and urgent intervention for spring testing. Talk a little bit about the overall impression, and then what we're doing to support kids. As you can see, we have 3% above benchmark, 25% at benchmark, 19% on watch, 27% intervention, and 27% urgent intervention. And you can see there's an increase from the winter and above benchmark, which is the dark green, at benchmark, which is the green, and then also in the urgent intervention, which is red. And we have a decrease from winter on watch in blue, and intervention a decrease also, which is the yellow category. So there's a slight shift to the left and also a slight shift to the right. We continue to serve our students in support with essentials classes that we offer. Also our lit labs, our interventionist, Mr. Derek Cody, and our bar support pieces. So that's reading for 9th grade. So we'll jump to math for 9th grade. So 5% above benchmark, 23% at benchmark, 30% on watch, 38% intervention, and 4% urgent intervention. You can see there's an increase from winter above benchmark, which is again the dark green, intervention yellow, decrease in urgent intervention. And we have a couple of categories that stayed the same, the at benchmark, green, and on watch, blue. And so overall, it was just continued growth in some of those categories, a slight increase in movement, from urgent, showing some movement from urgent intervention, which is a positive there. And we offer obviously leveled math courses, math labs for support in our BAR program for 9th graders.
Mark, on my observation of the same with this as it was, I think with what Jamie and Ben had shown also, we're looking at students that are coming into first year of high school without having 2 really important years of middle school to really help bolster all of their learning and their skills.
Mhm.
So that really tells quite the story as
It does, and obviously, the teachers involved, both on the 8th grade team and the 9th grade team, take pride, obviously in the work that they're doing to have students progress. I would say that the BAR program, both in 9th and 10th grade, which I'll talk about in just a minute here, has helped to support students in making gains in their academics overall, not just obviously the STAR testing, but gains overall in regards to earning credits and making their way towards graduation. It's I will say it is disheartening. I mean, these numbers aren't as impressive as what we see with first graders or second graders, but it's also important to remember where 9th graders are at as far as their development into a high school atmosphere. Obviously, I mean, you can say things, the pandemic and all that stuff, but ultimately, we continue to work hard to make sure that we're making progress is what it comes down to.
and the developmental piece that you speak of is huge, because in high school, you have a lot more that you have to be responsible for yourself,
Mhm.
as opposed to having somebody really encouraging you along. And having the BAR program and the other pieces that you have is really good for the students, but it's very much a developmental piece as well.
It's funny, right? Like it does take time for it to click in for some students, and
One data point, right? We celebrated how we went from graduation rate from like 75 to like 89, 90.
Right.
Your failure rate has reduced over,
Mhm.
even through the COVID, pandemic. So just one snapshot, but it is something that our
Yeah, it's
teachers do
important.
have
It's
a
important.
great conversation at during those bar meetings.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. So I'm sorry, I think I was moving on to 10th grade reading. So you can see the numbers. So 6% above benchmark, 24% at benchmark, 17 on watch, 36 intervention, and 17% urgent intervention. And just some breakdown there. There was an increase from the winter in intervention, the yellow, decrease in the above benchmark, the dark green, and on watch, which is the blue, and staying the same at benchmark and the urgent intervention. Overall, again, there's a continued growth there, but there is a slight shift to the right into intervention. So you can see that coming from the on watch to, I would say the on watch to the intervention category. So the blue to the green, blue to the yellow. You get all those colors together. So essentials courses, lit labs, interventionist, and bar for those continued supports for our 10th graders in reading. And then in math, we have nobody that met the at above benchmark, 44% at benchmark, 13% on watch, 30% intervention, and 13% urgent intervention. Increase at benchmark, urgent intervention also an increase, a decrease on watch, which is a blue, intervention yellow, and above benchmark dark green. So there's a decrease in those. Again, overall increase in benchmark from in a shift from intervention to urgent intervention. So some continued growth there in some spots, but then some regression in others. And again, for math supports, leveled math classes, math labs, and a bar. And so for 11th graders, we have the following numbers: 6% above benchmark, 18% at benchmark, 18% on watch, 36% intervention, and 22% urgent intervention. So an increase in intervention, which is yellow, urgent intervention red, and above benchmark, which was a dark green, and also on watch, and a decrease in the at benchmark. So it's a split in directions, but mostly to the right, meaning the intervention and urgent intervention. So again, we have essentials in lit labs and interventions that works with our 11th grade students. We do not have the bar program currently for 11th graders. So math for the high school 11th graders. We have nobody who met above benchmark. At benchmark was 34%, on watch 22%, 28% intervention, and 16% urgent intervention. An increase in intervention yellow, a decrease in at benchmark, on watch, and urgent intervention. The shift is split a little bit there, up and down, so to the left and to the right. You can see, obviously, if things grow a little bit from the urgent intervention to the intervention, but we also lose some spots back to that yellow bucket, if you will, from the on watch and above benchmark. 12th graders reading, what we have here is 9% above benchmark, 27 at benchmark, 21 on watch, 29 intervention, and 14% urgent intervention. You can see there's a trend. This is a trend that you would like to see, just that things are moving to the left. So decreases in the urgent intervention towards the on watch, which is the blue. And then from there, you have 27% again with the at benchmark, and a slight increase at the above benchmark. And to support our 12th grade students, we have essentials classes, lit labs, and also an interventionist that will work with students in need. And then finally, we have 12th grade math. And we have 0% that qualified above benchmark, 50% that were at benchmark, 17% on watch, 10% intervention, and 24% urgent intervention. So some movement to the left, but unfortunately movement to the right. More movement to the right, I should say. And so, again, those interventions for our math students would be leveled math classes and math labs for additional math support. And so those are our numbers for the spring testing window for Oak Hill High School. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
What are the math subjects for 11th and 12th that they're getting tested on? The math skills.
So I know that for 10th graders, it's primarily geometry skills. As far as 11th and 12th grade is concerned, I think it's a smattering of skills that they're testing for. So algebra primarily. Yeah, algebra 2.
All right. I see the scores. They're not pretty, but again, old school. All right. I don't think we offer, and I'm not sure if we have the ability to offer enough different classes that count as math, that are math, for our students. And of course, you wouldn't be able to test. So, there are business math courses that I took in high school that counted. Sales, I think, counted because of the amount of math was in that. I think I took Algebra 1 twice, didn't complete it either time, so I didn't take any of the other math going on up. But my math was all something else for 3 years of math. So, and now I got my bachelor's degree in accounting, and then that was a different type of math than one here. So bookkeeping was one that was math. And I fear that maybe we're locked in by the state, or we're locked in by ourselves, in that we feel every student should take geometry and every student should take algebra 2. And it's like every student should go to college. No, they shouldn't. Some just are not going to succeed at college, and we shouldn't set them up to have to go. So I believe it's something that, they certainly wouldn't test that way. I mean, these tests on the national norm is expecting the geometry and the,
Sure.
Maybe trig and algebra 2 or whatever they might want to test for. So it brings up the point that this is a particular test that tests for certain things. I would like to make sure that our students have the ability to learn. Math is the best example I can come up with. To learn math skills that they will be able to use in life, and not go to a class where the odds of using a lot of geometry or a lot of algebra 2 for most people are pretty slim, especially as Robbie said, we got a tool that we carry around. You know, my first computer cost me 2 months of wages in the Navy, and you know, I got a watch that has more power than that thing.
Sure.
had, you know, so they're just going to keep getting bigger and more powerful. But the students need to have skills that they can use throughout life. So perhaps curriculum needs to look at what can we offer those students who aren't doing good in algebra or don't start doing good in geometry. Maybe something else. I can pull out a drawer at my house and I have 3 slide rules, you know, that my dad used as an appraiser, and his little books with all the fancy geometry and stuff in it. And I can go upstairs and I can pull down the geometry book that he had in high school, you know, and the algebra book. So, you know, it's changed. Some of those, the formulas are the same, but not everybody needed them. So somehow we have to make sure that we're offering the right selection of classes so our students will learn stuff that will be worth something to them throughout their life, other than to chip away at a credit, which we can get to them some other way. Because the board sets the credit criteria and courses that in order to get a diploma from us. All right? So those are my comments with yours. High school is a tough one, especially the 12th grade, because they got their mind someplace else, you know.
Yeah.
So those are my comments.
Sure. Thank you.
If my memory serves me well, we have what's considered a senior math, where they take particular areas that students may need review and do that as a class credit.
Yep.
The other thing, to kind of speak to what you're saying, Bob, Jim Palmer, correct me if I'm wrong, but the high set now, because of the standards that are set with that, isn't that, testing level at an algebra 2 level for a student to be able to pass the high set?
Yeah, the last
Yeah.
was a big deal.
Yeah, so it's, what used to be the GED is now the high set, like, that's the requirement for students to have that level of knowledge as well.
Right,
So
but-
that it can be
right.
accepted at whatever they choose to do post-secondary, if nothing at all,
Right.
so,
So the last
yeah.
school conference that we had 3 years ago that I attended, representatives of many of the universities were there and said that for certain degree programs, they were not going to longer require algebra.
Yep.
They found that was the biggest course that they had to give remedial education for was algebra, and you didn't need it for certain degree fields. It served no purpose other than for the university to collect money and to have students try it over and over again. So, you know, it's education system and things like I said have to be, we as a board and as residents of the state and as citizens of this country, we need to go and make sure that the students are getting an education that's going to be beneficial and helpful to them throughout their life, and not one that is set by people who have already been down that line and they believe that what they do is the best. I got accepted in the master's program at University of Southern Maine. I went down there and they wanted me to take 4 classes over. And I graduated with a 3.8 average. I told them I'm not going to take any classes over. If I fail because you don't think I have the information, that's on me. So oftentimes we're just hooked up in this educational environment where we think this is the way it has to be, and it doesn't. There's a box and we can go outside that box. So those are kind of the comments overall. You know, we really wanted to get to that individual customized learning process, almost do away with grades, just let kids progress as fast as they can, and when they get to that certain point, if it's early in their life, they can hang around a little longer. Otherwise, when they get there, now they go on to the next step in life. So, you know, we have to do a better job of educating our students.
Robbie?
Yeah, and to piggyback on what Bob was saying, the point that I don't think that we're getting as in education is that the phrase I hate the most is that's the way we do it. Because these kids are coming up through school, and I realize that once they get the foundation in multiplication, addition, subtraction, and they know how to set a formula up in algebra and trigonometry, whatever, I think we need to show them how to use the tools that they have. I was an apprenticeship instructor for 17 years, and every time I started a new blueprint layout class, I would tell the students we're going to learn algebra, geometry, trigonometry, and, you know, advanced math. Half the class would look at me with glazed over looks. Well, I didn't get to take any of that in high school. I know. But I'm going to show you the formula, plug in the height, the diameter, the width, the distance, and you'll get to know it. So I would take kids, I mean, not kids, they were adults. I would take people that had rudimentary math and be able to go on a job and figure it out. But they wouldn't do it from memory. They had the tools to do it. I think we need to teach our students, and math is a great example of this. Every one of those students should be in the green if they know how to use the tools that we give them. We spend thousands of dollars giving every student laptop, iPad, show them how to do algebra, but show them how to set the formula up. Once they've done it a couple times, they're done. Math doesn't change. Math is math. If you're going to figure out an algebraic problem, use the tools. We didn't have those tools 25 years ago. When I was in school, you brought a calculator in, you had to hide it. You didn't want your teacher to see it because they took it from you because you weren't supposed to use it. But it's a tool. This is a tool. We have to show our kids how to use the tools that they have. If you're working at McDonald's and you need to know how many ounces there are in a gallon, you're not going to bring that out on top of your head. You're going to punch it in here and you got it. That's what I think that's where education has to go, is we have to show them to use the tools that we now have.
You know, just to respond to kind of what you guys are a little talking about, it's just I think what's interesting is that, you know, math is problem solving essentially, right? And so, you know, the degree of problem solving within math gets more and more difficult on the level of math that you take. And so, you know, oftentimes, you know, if a student, you know, might ask me, and not that they would necessarily ask me this, that they'd ask their math teacher, you know, what am I doing this for? I mean, I think an acceptable answer and an appropriate answer is that it's about problem solving. And so that's what this is teaching you. It's how to approach something and solve the problem. Now, it may be specific to math. It may be something specific to, you know, what you were talking about, Robbie, where it's like, okay, I'm going to be on the job site. What tools do I need? You know, and so I think it's applicable and something that can be, you know, brought on to the, you know, to whatever application that kids might need. It's just not as direct, you know, at times as it could be, you know, given the fact, obviously, that, you know, we have certain criteria and curriculum that we need to cover, you know, throughout the school year. That's not to say that we can't come up with creative ways for students to show their work, you know, or their understanding.
So that is problem solving, picking up the tool and putting it in.
There you go. That's problem
I'm
solving.
not problem solving.
Not arguing with you. I'm not.
All right, any other comments?
I mean, I see nurses every day going on their iPad watch and figuring out how many milliliters or whatever they're given for a shot.
Sure.
It's right there. It's on their wrist.
So I'm just going to say, a lot of the professions that you're speaking about are very, like, a nurse has, obviously they're going to have lots of other things that kind of come into their play, but they have kind of, this is their job and this is what they do. Our teachers have been asked to be, probably within the first 30 minutes of school, the nurse, the food service person, the mental health counselor, the behaviorist, like all of these things. And I think that we haven't really talked about all of the pieces. And Ben kind of alluded to it a little bit in his report of X amount of referrals to the office. Like, kids are coming in a very different place than they have been 3 years ago. And I don't think, and it's not any fault of our district, I think education in a whole hasn't really adjusted ever.
Right.
Schools were created in the industrial age.
Sure.
That's why we have grade levels. That's why kids walk in lines.
Yep.
Those pieces haven't really ever evolved. So I think this is an opportunity, but we also have to trust our educators. And again, I'm going to say...
I agree wholeheartedly, Christy. But I'm saying is, if you have a class of 18 students and you're teaching algebra, and you write an equation on the board, everybody has their iPad, phone, laptop, or whatever, and you go through it, how to use it, how to input it.
And then tell me how you got there.
Tell me how you got there. Everybody gets it right.
All right, so this is, I think, a great discussion.
Yeah.
I think that this is something that we as a board need to look to, especially once we have a new superintendent in place that will be more.
Sorry to grill you.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, I've already signed it. It's done. Okay. All right, thank you all. It's good information to know, and I do realize, and we all do, it's a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a true measure of the knowledge that the student has or even the progress that they've made throughout the year. But it is, I guess it's one of those tools that we have to kind of get an idea of how it might be going. Probably not the best tool, but it's the one we have. All right, moving on. I would entertain a motion to approve a motion that the vote entitled, "Vote to Call and Approve the Warrants for RSU4 Referendum Election for School Construction Purposes," be approved in form presented to this meeting, and a copy of this vote be included with the minutes of this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion, the vote is attached. That we're on, right, so we're moving to approve this particular vote that's there, okay? Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Committee reports, facilities, finance didn't meet. Do
Nope.
you have any updates on?
Just that we're meeting on the meeting in Litchfield went really well, and that Jonathan's out for a couple weeks for his National Guard. Is it National Guard or Army Reserve? And we have another meeting on the 22nd. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions or anything that comes up. So,
All right,
So Robbie, our next meeting is the 22nd, and it's before the board meeting?
yes,
that's your next meeting for what?
All of us.
for the building meeting, right? June 22nd?
Right,
Public
it's a
meeting.
public meeting. Are we planning to have a board meeting after that? Is that what I
Yes.
understand?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. I just saw the 22nd at 6:30.
High school.
We're gonna set it up just like the budget.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Policy, personnel?
And then we hired a superintendent.
And we did good.
And
Wow.
short time.
CAI Technology Committee.
Yes, so I just passed out to you all, the assessment changes that CAI looked at tonight. The biggest change that you're going to see here, as we all know, we are, switching to the overall platform of Power School over this summer. And with that switch comes, some lovely changes in that. A lot of our previous data is easily uploaded to this system, which is going to make things so much more user-friendly and streamlined for our teachers, which is so important. The biggest thing that you're going to notice about that, however, is that all of this wonderful color-coded information is not going to be presented like that anymore. We will not be having STAR testing anymore because we are switching to the NWEAs, which the state has now decided that that is what they're using for their Department of Education testing. Yes, for now, exactly. Which makes things a little bit easier in terms of, again, streamlining and being able to take something off from teachers' plate. The other thing about the NWEA, it does give specific information, once again, for a student and where they're at, and it's going to be easily accessed in the Power School area, which will be helpful. However, all of the previous 7 years of data for the STAR information is also going to be uploaded. They've been working on that, so that will be available to people as well.
which would be extremely helpful. And so that's where we're at with CAI for the next year.
Questions? I'll make a comment that it never fails. Every
Yeah.
administration, changes the testing, so you can't track testing results over a period of time. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I used to go and put it all in a spreadsheet but for cohorts for every year so I could track it year to year to year to year in class, and then they'd change it. And then they change it again. It never fails. So you can never go back and do a comparison on how a student or a class is done throughout their school time because the tests always change. It's a good way to hide results, right, Scott? I mean,
How
can't
often,
compare the apples and oranges. That's
Right.
what they say. All right, I'm sorry. Board member comments, Diane.
how often is
Oh.
NWEA given? Will it be given?
It'll be given 3 times a year.
Oh my word. Is that test different for the lower grades? I mean, like Star had like an early. Is this one going to have like 2 parts as well?
So it's like that second grade, so this is like first and second grade. So, there's a lot of conversation at the different buildings, but, at this point, K2 is gonna do 1 test, and we show, second grade, we need to do the K1, test with them, or the 2 through 5. Because of Sabatis Primary being a 1-2 building, we're gonna start with the K2, test at this point, so that PL2s and, professional development can be streamlined, at Sabatis Primary. And then 3 through 8, will be able to, they're very similar. And we'll showcase like what that looks like and what, what it's more about the growth versus the achievement. So we'll kind of showcase what those, as opposed to showing you the sea of green or whatever Mark used to call it, we'll show you some of the reports that, teachers can utilize next year, and then also how we're going to chart growth versus achievement in NWA.
So the NWEA will be considered our local assessment and our state assessment.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Does that
Vicky?
mean they no longer do freckle?
No, Freckle can still be skills, so,
Okay.
we can still look at the skills that they have in NWA and utilize that, so, we leverage Professor Two Clubs to utilize that for so many years, so we'll continue to do it.
Okay, and then number, I am really questioning, we haven't had student reps at all this year. I really would like to get started on that in September and, welcome our student reps here.
Yeah,
Okay?
it's important. I don't know, we had one,
We started the process,
started,
but then
yeah.
we had, there was a lot of masking stuff going on, and we didn't feel like at that point it was good to bring students into that environment. But we have a whole process in place. It's just a matter of recruiting.
okay, thank you. Board member comments. Diane.
I'd like to say I went to graduation and it was amazing. Kids did a really great job, and I was really impressed.
I watched it online. I was impressed with the speakers. They did a good job.
They did. What I'd like to see on their little booklets, and I was telling Marco, is it'd be great to see the kids' name and what their future looks like. Are they going to college? Are they going into the workforce? It'd be good. That way, community members could say, wow, we have a lot of kids entering the trade or going to college or in the military. Because I did see some with the military.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it would be nice to see what they're doing, what they're going to do.
okay. Robbie?
Yeah, I went to graduation too, and I could say that I'm probably the only person in the room that went to Oak Hill's first graduation. So,
Can you tell us the difference?
well, we're at the Civic Center instead of the sweaty high school,
Yep.
Been there.
and there's half as many people than there is now. But it was nice to get back to tradition. I know Oak Hill's this is only its 45th graduation, but it was nice to get back to tradition, and the feeling around the room was of everybody coming together for a great moment. And that felt really good, really good.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes?
Welcome, Katie. We're really excited to have you leading the charge for RSU4 and working with the whole board and everybody. It's really exciting. So, thank you very much.
Any others? All right, with all the business on the agenda having been completed, without objection, I'll declare this meeting adjourned.
We said 8 o'clock. We're getting good at this.
Recording stopped.
Board members